Hey, it's your friend Renee, and welcome to the It's In You podcast. So today I just had a conversation with a client, and I've come in from it thinking I'm going to record this on a podcast because I think there is lots of you that will be feeling a very similar way. And I think it's really important to kind of put everything in perspective. So I was talking to a client who had just got on the scales, and she had got on the scales and seen that the scales was heavier than what she expected to be. She was annoyed, which, because she expected to weigh a certain amount and she was heavier. She was frustrated, because she said, well, I've been working out and I've been doing this and, so why has the scale gone up? And I'm sure that you have done this yourself. We are all human, and I know I've done it before. The thing is that I understand the background of it all. So I might get annoyed, but then the other part of my brain kicks in. And I'm like, well, Renee, let's look at this situation, this, and add it all up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to explain kind of, if this was you, some things that I would be looking at first. The thing is that I see, firstly, how regularly do you get on the scales? So are you somebody that just hops on the scales willy-nilly, or are you one of those people that are in the category of, I'm not going to weigh myself because, we don't believe in the scales and you don't want to weigh yourself, which I know lots of people are. But to be honest, I like the scales. I think the scales are a really valid and way to measure yourself. Now, they're not the be-all and end-all. There are lots of factors that go into the results of that scale. I don't make it have a meaning about me, which is what I see happen a lot. People get on the scales, they then make it mean something that it doesn't. And they interpret the scales as something about them, which then in turn put them on a bit of a spiral. So the scales to me are one piece of data. They are one piece of data about your body. I don't think we should live by the scales but I think weighing yourself regularly is not a bad thing. Having a regular weigh in just to check out where you're at is good. And, it's also really important to understand your body more by using the scales. So then when you do get on the scales and the scale's up, you don't know, it's really hard to tell because, this person, the scale had gone up, but her clothes weren't any tighter than her. She knew that she's been doing more exercise. So she knew that she'd increased in those things. So, she was just surprised. But the same thing is, I was like, when was the last time that you weighed yourself? And what circumstances were you in at that point? Because that's why I said you're comparing two totally different things, and the variables are so different. And that's why, we've just got to stop only using this one kind of measurement tool and giving this a meaning about our whole bodies and our lives and what we're doing. So the first thing that I would say is use the scales regularly. Use them, but as a piece of data. If you are going to be somebody that, used to have, an eating disorder, if you are somebody that, used to have a real struggle with the scales, then don't do it, But if you can see the scales as a piece of data, one piece of data, and we need to look at all these other factors, then please do it. Okay, and please do it to learn something about yourself. And when you can learn something about yourself and you can understand your body better and understand how it works, then you don't need to weigh yourself all the time. I had another client who was in the category of not wanting to weigh herself, which again, that's her choice. That's all fine. That she didn't weigh herself for a long time, or for an amount of time. And in that time, she'd put on 20 kilos. So she was shocked when she actually did weigh herself. Now, yes, she probably would have noticed that she'd put on some weight, but she didn't realize that she'd put on that amount. And my argument to that is, if she was weighing herself regularly, she may have been able to stop at 5 or 10 kilos instead of getting to 20 kilos. And 20 kilos is a lot harder to lose than what 5 is. All things we go through in life, all things we go through when we're under maybe more stress, your activity level changes, and you go on holidays, other things. And yes, you're going to put weight on. It is what it is. But just use this as a piece of data to keep you in check. When you realize like, I've put on a few kilos, well, maybe you rein it in a little bit, and that's good thing. So that couple of kilos doesn't turn to 5 or 6 or 10 or whatever, so you can learn to manage it. So I would like you to see the scales as a piece of data and really look at weighing yourself regularly, just as a way to get to know your body. Now, what else affects the scale? So there's many things that affect the scale that is not just your weight. So I weighed 75 kilos and I lost 5 kilos. So I had a body composition scan. I set myself a little goal and I said I wanted to lose 5 kilos. So I lost 5 kilos. Now, when I lost 5 kilos, I lost mostly muscle. And if I had never have done the body composition scan, I wouldn't have understood that I was better off weighing 75 kilos because I had a larger muscle mass than what I was when I weighed 70 kilos. Now, if I hadn't done the scan in that way, I would have looked at the scale and went, well, I've lost 5 kilos. I've done it, because I was only looking at this one data point. But, since I had done the body composition scan, I could see the difference, and I could see that in that process of losing those 5 kilos, I'd actually lost muscle. So that was a really big eye opener for me, a really good thing to realize. So muscle is denser. And so muscle is going to weigh more, but the more muscle you have, the better. As we age, muscle is going to protect your bones. It is going to help you stand upright, keep you nice and strong, fit and able to walk and move around. So it's really, really important. So the more muscle mass you can have, the better. You will get that from weight training. So it is not, you are never going to turn out like Arnold Schwarzenegger or any of those things. So people that are in the bodybuilding, if you feel worried that you will look like a man, it's something that, you would have to take testosterone to do. And, those people that are that size, they've really intentionally worked very hard to get there. So you are not going to get there unless you are really trying to. That's what I'm trying to say here. So that's really important to understand that. So that's why we don't want to just look at that one point in on the scale. So if you happen to have access to a body composition scanner, do so and use that as another piece of data. So take in the information that the scanner is telling you. The other biggest tip that I have is use a tape measure. So if you measure your waist and your waist measurement, if you get on the scales and the scale has gone up, but your waist measurement has stayed the same, you are most likely retaining water, which means you have not put fat on. Okay, so we've got to understand the difference of when people are looking to weigh a certain price. We are like, what are we, 90% water or something. So water is going to affect that scale and affect that result on there. So it's understanding that if you measure your waist, you get on the scales and your waist measurement stays the same, but the scale has gone up, you are most likely just retaining water. So retaining fluid for whatever reason. We'll go through some of them after. If you get on the scales and the scale has gone up and your waist measurement has gone up, then you are most likely you've put on some fat. And so then that's when you need to look at your food, your activity, what else is really going on. And, again, it doesn't mean anything about you. It just means, thank God I've realized this now before I've let it get to, what are the things that I can tweak or I need to change. It doesn't mean anything else other than that. And like I said, that's the biggest thing. Stop giving it a big meaning, giving it this big meaning that we don't need to. So that's the things that I would be looking at. Now, I said before about retaining water. So we will retain water and for many different reasons. And these are some of the things that you can think about when you get on that scale. And if you get on it once a week and you start to notice patterns, then you'll understand where the fluctuations were. I weighed myself the other day and I was 3.5 kilos heavier than where I normally sit. And I was like, oh, I wonder what's going on type thing. I thought, so I weighed, then I jumped on the scales the next day and I was still up, but I felt uncomfortable. I felt really bloated. I just felt really yucky. So I knew there was something that was, and then, again, I didn't give it a big meaning. I thought, this is not what I was expecting. And then I'd left it a few days and then I got to the scales and I was back down those 3.5 kilos. So there was something hormonal going on or something at that time that I was retaining more water. So we want to look at some reasons that you could be retaining this water. So one could be depending on what you've eaten. So carbohydrates are going to hold more water in them. Again, you've not put on fat, you're just retaining water. So if you've had a really high carbohydrate meal, you are more likely going to retain more water, okay? If you've had something really salty, you will again retain more water. So again, it's just because of that circumstance of what you've eaten. Also, if you are in your cycle, so depending on your cycle, and this is why it's really good to track your cycle, work it out as to what works for your body and how your body works, that there's times of the month that you will weigh more. But again, you've not put on fat, it's just hormones. So that's really also important to understand. And I tracked I'm somebody that I'm very lucky. I don't have a cycle that affects me. Like I know so many women that it does. My period comes and goes and kind of that's it. Where I know women that obviously have crippled, in pain and whatever else from their periods. So I never gave it much thought. I'd heard people talking about exercising for your cycle and I thought, well, it doesn't really affect me. But I finally started to tune into my cycle more. So I did start to tune in and I started to notice differences, during the month of how I felt. And I actually had quite a lot of symptoms, but I just I wasn't tuned in before and I kind of ignored them. I just thought, well, I've just got to get on with this, just keep moving. Just start to tune into cycle. And I promise you, whatever stage you are at life, okay, my 88-year-old grandma still has a cycle and she had a hysterectomy when she was 50 and she still has a cycle. Every woman that I've come across that we've tried to work their cycle out with them, we've been able to work it out within 3 months and notice some trends. And this is just to understand your body better. So it's to understand your body better. So then when you get on that scale and you see it's gone up, we don't then sabotage everything else because we think we're fucked up. Because the truth is you haven't. Okay, you haven't at all. We want to make sure we understand everything that is going to affect the scales that day. So start to tune into your cycle as well. And just, you can, if you're, on some form of contraceptive and you're like, oh, it's all really irregular or any of those things, just start writing things down and I promise you will start to notice a trend and it will give you a better understanding of your body. I remember when I first started doing it, I came home one day and I was feeling really fatigued and I came home and I was sitting on the couch and my husband was like, what are you doing sitting down? Why are you sitting down? And I was sitting down because I was tired and I recognized I was tired and I thought, just listen to your body. Just sit down and just listen to your body. And from the understanding my cycle more, I do that. As a rough overview of your cycle, if you had a 28-day cycle, but again, you need to take note of things for yourself. If you had a 28-day cycle, optimally the first 2 weeks, you are in a better time to lose weight. You will have more energy. You'll feel like you can do more things. You will probably want to be more social. And there is actually a day of the month where you will feel most attractive, but again, and then we ovulate and then the 2 weeks leading into you getting your period is when it's harder to lose weight, pretty much impossible. Harder to lose weight, it is you are going to be lacking energy. You might notice that you have different cravings for certain foods. You might be bloated and those other things. So it's also important to take note of those things and work out what works for your body and where it's at. So for me, I take the first, after I finish my period, I don't have lots of energy. So I generally feel okay right up until I get my period, but I probably take a week from the period. And I tend to lack energy during the week after my period, and I tend to be heavier for that week. So that's just what I've worked out about myself, and that's why it's important. And so when I do get on the scales and I see the scales up, I'm like, oh, is it something to do with that? Again, that's why I said there's so many other factors that can go into that number. So let's not just look at one thing. Let's not look at one thing and then just decide that, we're angry, I'm not happy about this, and, something's happened. It's like, okay, what else is going on? And the only way you can work that out is by writing down your moods, writing down how you're feeling, writing down, like understanding if you are thinking that you've increased your exercise amount that you're exercising, you've increased that, you feel, well, I've been doing all this extra exercise, why am I not losing weight? Your body needs fuel for that exercise. So have you thought about increasing your food to supplement the exercise that you're doing? If you are not eating enough food to fuel your body will slow things down because it wants to preserve energy. And it doesn't know if you don't eat regularly, it doesn't know when you're going to give it food. Again, it will slow things down, it will shut things off, the things that it doesn't need. This is where you might see that you gain weight because your body is just trying to store everything because it doesn't know when it's going to get food regularly to support the extra activities that you're doing. That's something else to go in. So we want to be able to look at all of the factors. We can't just come in, weigh yourself, and then be pissed off for the rest of the day. I don't want that for you. I want you to weigh yourself and to be, okay, this is where I'm at. This is okay. This is where I'm at today. And I'm going to try my very best to get to where I want to be. That's it. And but it don't make it mean anything about you. You're not a loser. You are not a failure. You are not a bad mum. You're not any of those things. It's just a number. And it's just a number, but it's a piece of data that is really important to understand for your overall health. I have an uncle and he does the same thing. And it's very in my family, and maybe obviously that's where I got it from. But he was saying to me, he's in his 80s and he weighs himself, and if he notices that his weight's gone up a little bit, then he goes, oh, well, I can't have those extra chocolate biscuits, and he doesn't have them. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think he's making choices on, he's not dictating his life from it, but, he doesn't have to. We don't stop giving it a meaning. Stop giving it a meaning, because it's when we give it the meaning, it's when we beat ourselves up and we feel shit about ourselves, and then that turns into a whole nother cycle of things. You could be interpreting that amount wrong. And I really feel that this person today, she was doing that, and we were able to talk over a few things. And I said, but when you have the evidence that you can realize, oh, okay, this, I've tried this, I've tracked this, I've worked this out, then you go, okay, now I have actually put weight on. So deep down, you know the things that you need to zip in. You all know it. And when we're honest with ourselves, you can be like, okay, yep, let's, and if you're unsure of things, then obviously seek out help. Because there's more things than what you realize go into that number is affected by more things than what most people realize. And and when you can weigh yourself regularly, and you can notice trends, and then so the next time you get on scales and you see, like I said, I got on scales last week and I was 3 kilos heavier, but I knew that it was a hormonal thing or retaining water. I knew it was that. I knew I hadn't put fat on. And that's why you measure your waist with a tape measure, and you use the scale. That's 2 different data points that you could really be looking at measuring to see if you are still on track for where you are looking to go. If you get on the scales and you feeling frustrated because the answer is not saying what you think it is, I want you to look at taking into account all the information. Take into account the other factors that affect your cycle, affect your weight and your cycle and all those other things. And let's start to take notes. Because when we take notes, then you have something to go from. But just measuring yourself once in a blue moon and being annoyed that you put weight on isn't going to help. It's not going to help, and we don't actually know all the factors. So I wanted to explain that to you all today. I thought it was quite a good thing to be able to explain and to help people stop beating themselves up about what that scale says, because it's just a number. It means nothing about you as a person. It means nothing about you as a mum. It means nothing about you other than it is just a number. And the more that we stop giving all this stuff a meaning, the better we are going to be, and the better relationship with our bodies that we're going to have. We're going to stop beating up on them, because that's what's super important. Okay, I'm going to love you and leave you today, and I will speak to you all soon.